Well, hello there, everybody. Hope your Thursday's going very, very well. Delighted to be joined on EFL debate by Swindon Town boss Scott Lindsey. Scott, thanks so much for your time as always. Really appreciate you coming on. How do you reflect on the season so far in its entirety?
Hi, Gabriel. Yeah, I think we're not far off halfway through now. On reflection, I think we had a good start. We picked up some real kind of good away points on the road, some real tough journeys, and I think after 15 games, somebody told me that we'd had the best start in 16 years at Swindon Town. So obviously, really pleased with that. We wanted to continue that. We've picked up a couple of bad results of late, but we're still in a really healthy position. We've got lots of games to play. So yeah, I think in the whole, with the fact that we've signed 21 new players at the start of the season, I think we're in a really good position.
Yeah, I think there's probably two very valid schools of thought on Swindon Town. I think the first would be, and maybe from an outside perspective, this would be the one I'd lean more towards, would be given everything that's gone before. I know we won't, probably don't have enough time to go on into what's gone before, but I think this is a rebuilding stage for the club after the previous ownership era, and I think it's important to take that seriously. And it is a stage where the club is investing in young talent and trying to build a squad. I think there's probably another school of thought, Scott, which would be that there is the individual quality of Johnny Williams when he's available, Louis Reed, Angus MacDonald was signed, lots of players along with some talented types that would suggest, maybe we should try and expect to be in that top seven or at least very competitive. So how do you manage those two schools of thought as Swindon Town manager?
Well, I think they're both, have got, well, you certainly have valid points in terms of both there, both scenarios. Yeah, I've got some young players who have not got any experience. Like I say, we signed 21 new players. We've had, I think it's something like 5 league debuts this season already, which probably is the most that any club's had throughout the division. So we have that school of thought, which I support, which is what we do. We develop young players, but we also have to have that sprinkling of experience. And within our experience, we've got real quality with, like you say, the likes of Johnny Williams, Ben Gladwin, Angus MacDonald, Lewis Reed. So yeah, I think that we're not a complete football club if we don't have both. I think we have to have that sprinkling of experience and quality to enhance the younger players, definitely.
Yeah, that certainly makes sense, and I think when you do focus on the youth and trying to get players like Romeo Hutton and Jacob Wakeling, who are having fantastic seasons, investing in those young players, I think it's really important that you've got some of the more experienced types that are available and on form. And I suppose that's possibly where you've maybe been a little bit unlucky in the sense that Johnny Williams gone to a World Cup. I mean, how many times in the past have World Cups interrupted football seasons for at League Two level? Possibly not too often. So obviously that's a tricky thing to deal with. I think Angus, if I'm not mistaken, has had injury issues at centre back as well. So is it about? Is it going to be really helpful in your push for the playoffs to get these experienced players fit, available, and in form?
Yeah, definitely. Johnny's been a big miss since he went on his journey to the World Cup, and he had a great time out there. Obviously, didn't play much football, but it was a great experience for him, and we certainly missed him. Angus was out pretty much 2 months to the day, really, with his shoulder injury. Again, a big miss for us. So, yeah, we're hopeful that we can keep these players kind of playing and fit, and hopefully we can make a push towards the end of the season for sure.
Yeah, let's hope that's the case, Scott. I want to take you back a little bit to the 14-15 side. I think we've talked about it with you on this podcast before, the side that got to the playoff final and was so exciting to watch. I remember sort of some of the football that team played was incredibly exciting. That team played well with a back three, and Bristol City, Swindon Town fans won't thank me for mentioning this, but they won the league that season with a back three formation as well. Is it, the angles and the opportunities that you can create with a back three system that kind of has led you more towards those systems this season at times?
Yeah, I think so, definitely. The 3-5-2 that we've played of late, there is really clear kind of passing lines that would allow us to play through the thirds with more efficiency. Definitely, there's not too much difference really from a 4-3-3. Very similar angles. The 4-3-3 system we've had a lot of joy with in terms of results. The 3-5-2 not so much. But like I said in previous interviews, that they're very, very similar formations, and realistically, you probably roll into a 4-3-3 from a 3-5-2 with certain movements, and vice versa. Realistically, it's where you stand at the kickoff, is a formation, and then when the game is alive, you roll in from different formations all the time with certain rotations and movements, which we work on quite hard on the training ground. Going back to the team that was here in 2014-15, they were very good in terms of possession. They had really good players who were comfortable with the ball, good midfield players who can handle the ball, players who could defend high up the pitch, 1v1s. And that's kind of what I'm trying to build again now. And it takes a hell of a lot of work on the training ground.
Yeah, of course. I suppose the slight distinction that I would make from a strategic point of view would be that it probably lends itself more to a 3-5-2 if you play Fraser Blake Tracy and Ellis Iandolo simultaneously, as opposed to just playing one or the other, in which case it possibly lends itself a little bit more to a 4-3-3. So is there a bit of a distinction in those cases?
Well, I think it depends on, you're right, but I think it depends on what you've got available as well in terms of the squad. There is call for Ellis to play in midfield as well, which he hasn't done this season so much. He did last season, was very good. We've seen Ellis play kind of as a left back or as a left wing back this season more so. But, there is call for him to play as a number 8 in midfield if we was to ever flip to a 4-3-3, I think, or even a 3-5-2 if we was to have Marcel. We know we can play kind of wide as well on the left-hand side, and we've got Reece Devine, who's currently injured at the moment, but can play obviously as a left wing back as well. So we've got certain players that can play different positions. But yeah, I'd agree in the fact that with Fraser and Ellis being in the same team, it would normally be a 3-5-2.
Yeah, that certainly makes sense. I suppose it's going to be very interesting to see what your thinking is when Johnny Williams comes back, because that's obviously going to make a huge difference to that creative element. I always think that Williams is one of those players you want to have quite high up the pitch, because he's not necessarily a long range passer, but the short passes that he can play, he can really open up doors. And I guess if you've got Jephcott, who's obviously a goal scorer at this level, and Wakeling, who's proven to be in form at times this season and has got a lot of pace as well, that could be a really valuable creative outlet.
Well, I think Johnny has that bit of know-how and guile at the top of the pitch that maybe we've lacked since Johnny's been at the World Cup. That little bit of creativity and a little bit of a spark that he really adds to the game. He'll come in off the shape, he'll find pockets of space, little half spaces as well. And usually when he gets the ball, something normally happens, whether he drives in the box or he'll pick a pass out or even get a shot off himself. He's actually our highest goal scorer this season so far, and we've had him missing for pretty much a month. So it just goes to show how well he's done this season. He's certainly a big miss for us, but great to have him back, and I'm sure he'll have a real involvement on Saturday.
Yeah, let's hope that's the case. Unfortunately, someone who won't be involved on Saturday is Saidu Khan. Obviously, from my point of view, and I'm sure the Swindon Town fan base wish him all the best with his recovery. Have you been able to get an update on that?
Yeah, spoke to Saidu today. Actually, he's come into the ground today, and we've had a chat. I spoke to him yesterday as well on the phone, and he actually got worse after the game. You know, on Sunday and Monday, he was really not great at all. But kind of over the worst of it now, and it'll be just a case of assessing him day by day, seeing where he is, and then there's a protocol that we've got to obviously cover before he'll be allowed to play again. Yeah, it was a bad one, not great, and we'll certainly miss him because he's been very good for us.
Yeah, of course. I think the midfield area has been a real strong point for Swindon Town this season, because last year Louis Reed was absolutely essential to everything. He was a real key player for Swindon, and you could argue that perhaps you'll by all means disagree with me, but I think Louis hasn't necessarily been quite at the level that he's capable of, and I mean that as a compliment in many respects. But then you've had Ben Gladwin, who's really come on this season, Saidu when he's been fit, Ellis Ayandolo can play in there, so you've had lots of options in that midfield. Ronan Darcy, of course, lots of options in that midfield area, which I'd imagine you feel is a real strong point of this squad.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And I think they're all different players as well. When you look at them, they all kind of had something different. You know, Louis Reed is a fantastic passer of the ball from them deep areas and links the play really well. Saidu Khan, when he's played in them deeper positions, kind of makes things happen in a different way. You know, he'll pick the ball up from deep areas and drive with it and almost open the opposition up by running with the ball. And not running with the ball like a winger would run with the ball, just a kind of aggressive drive. You know, there's times when he'll do a little pirouette and you'll think he's going in one direction, and then all of a sudden he's opened up another space and gone in another. Like you say, Ben Gladwin's been nothing short of outstanding for us this season. You know, he showed a real kind of energy levels that he didn't reach last season. And he's worked extremely hard on the training ground, and he's got himself fit throughout the summer. And he's come back, obviously looking a different player this season, being outstanding. And of course, Ronan Darcy, a real kind of live wire on the pitch. You know, he's exciting to watch. He'll shoot from distance. He'll create things from just being aggressive. He'll drive in the box with the ball. He'll make things happen. And then obviously, like say, Ellis can play in there, and of course we've not mentioned Ricky Aguirre as well, who's again a real fantastic technician who can pass the ball long and short, and has got abundance goals in abundance as well. He can score goals, you know. So our midfield area is a real, like you say, a real strong point, and it's been difficult, you know, from my point of view, in terms of knowing what the best blend is, you know, and it's been a good problem to have.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Swindon squad seems to be possibly even a little bit deeper in terms of numbers and players who can impact games than perhaps last year, and I think that makes for a lot of competition, a lot of strong competition. So I think that's a real ace you've got. But I want to talk to you about the sort of the ongoing dilemma, which I think a lot of managers have, Scott, which is process versus pragmatism. I can tell from that you're very much in the keep hold of possession and try to create opportunities that way. Obviously, part of that process and getting players in that way means that by definition you might miss certain counter-attacking opportunities in order to funnel players towards encouraging them to build towards that vision. So has that been a bit of a balancing act for you in some respects?
No, not really, because we always say if you can pass forward and you can score a goal, go and score a goal and pass forward. You know, if the ball's just turned over in our favour and we can hurt the opposition quickly, then we'll always encourage the players to do that. We're never gonna kind of like be naive enough to think that no, we need to pass it 10 times before we stick it in the net. You know, if we can make one pass and score from that, then we'll do that. It depends on the action, I suppose, at any given time. I think there's an element of control that we have within our game. Normally, when you win possession and you're sitting deep in your half of the pitch and you win possession, wherever the ball is, normally the team are behind you because they've thickened up and kind of become a defensive unit. Can we break from them positions? It will all depend on the action. It will depend on who's won the ball. If it's Johnny Williams who's won the ball and there's grass in front of him, you kind of hope and encourage him to drive with the ball and players will catch up with him. It might be Jacob Wakeling. You'd hope that he'd drive with the ball and people will catch up with him. It might be a Louis Reed and there might be bodies around him. Then you might think that, right, okay, we've got to come back out and play with a bit of depth and get that control back then. We don't want the game to become end-to-end because we feel it suits the opposition 9 times out of 10 more than it does us. We want to have that element of control. Excuse me, but we do realise that there's a game to be won, and if we can hurt the opposition by passing forward and quickly and aggressively, and run forward quickly and aggressively, then we'll do so.
Yeah, that certainly makes sense. I think, obviously, I'm speaking from the point of view of someone certainly that doesn't watch training every day, and certainly doesn't watch Swindon Town every week. So, it's difficult for me to speak with too much first-hand knowledge on this. I can sort of gather that there's possibly a feeling from Swindon Town supporters that they would like to see a tiny bit more purpose at certain moments. But I also wonder if, from your point of view, is it slightly dictated by opposition, where if you're facing side like Tranmere have come to the county ground and Crewe, where maybe there hasn't always been the space to go forward straight away, and you felt like you've wanted to be a little bit more patient at times?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that the fans have got a valid point that we have been ponderous at times. I agree. I think there's times when we can certainly be a little more aggressive. I think our decision making in the final third hasn't been great of late. Certainly the last 2 games. I think our composure's not been as good as it has been in past games. So the aggression, the composure, and the decision making are 3 things that need to improve in them final third. We speak about it quite a lot with the lads. We go through video footage, we show them, we talk, and we do a hell of a lot of work on the training ground to improve that. But yeah, I think that it's frustrating to see the last 2 games where we've kind of created chances, but not been aggressive enough to put them away. And I believe that sometimes we get in that final third. Me as a coach, we work really hard on getting into that final third. We work on playing out from the back, playing through the thirds, rotations, getting it up there. And sometimes when we get to that final third, we've got to have that little bit of guile, that little bit of know-how in the final third, a little bit of willingness, a little bit of aggression, decision-making and composure to score goals, and we have to improve on that. And trust me, we're working hard to make that happen.
Yeah, I have no doubt about that, Scott. Absolutely. I think one of the big challenges, I think, at League Two is you want, and I think this goes back a little bit to what we were talking about at the start, which is you want to try and develop players who are high potential, which requires a bit of innovation. But then it's also very difficult sometimes to innovate and be efficient to the optimal level simultaneously. And so even Jacob Wakeling, who's having an absolutely fantastic season, I've been extremely impressed with him. Last season he was at Barrow. He wasn't getting much of a look in. Probably didn't have the easiest time there for whatever reason, and there may be all sorts of reasons for that. But and this was really his first proper shot at senior football in a sense. And so he's still in a developmental process. So, maybe there is a little bit of patience required from a coaching perspective and possibly even from a sport perspective as well.
Of course. And they'll certainly find patience with myself because I understand that they're young lads, they're young professionals who, so like I say, we've had 5 league debuts. We've had a lot of players, aside of the 5 that we've give league debuts to that are very inexperienced at this level of football and not played loads of games. like I say, we've signed a lot of players who are certainly in that development years, and we work extremely hard on the training ground to improve them day on day, week on week. And sometimes in a game it doesn't happen for whatever reason. We have to give credit to the opposition, like you alluded to earlier, about the fact that we play against teams, especially at the county ground, where they may sit quite deep and block up spaces and make it difficult for us. We have to find a different way. We have to be inventive. We have to be smart with the ball, which I think we are at times, and sometimes possibly a little bit of patience maybe needs to be found for the players as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when it comes to opening up those deep blocks that you're talking about, I think the fullbacks or wingbacks are incredibly important, Scott. And one thing I'm sort of intrigued to ask you about as a manager is I used to value really athletic wingbacks that can just hit the byline straight away. And in that sense, I'm a massive fan of Romeo Hutton. We talked about him when you last came on. But then I'm starting to see, as you know, my ideas on football and tactics has evolved, I'm starting to see the value in players who are a little bit more technical, a little bit more about the link-up play, and do things a little bit more subtly, possibly like an Iandolo. So how do you balance those things as a manager, the qualities that you value from your wing backs?
Well, I think first of all we assess how we've played. The Crew game's an example of that. We had 56 box entries, 35 of which were from the right-hand side, Romeo Hutton's side. 17 were from the left-hand side and 4 through the middle. So what we said about it was we didn't want to become really predictable to every opposition we played against, and for every team that play against us or come to the county ground to kind of double up on that left side or our right side to stop Romeo Hutton, which will then in turn stop a large percentage of our balls coming into their box. So we've worked hard on, link up play through the middle, players driving in the box from different areas. Because if you can imagine that there's 2 players doubling up on Romeo on our right hand side, their left hand side, then there's spaces opening up elsewhere on the pitch, which we've got to use, and we've got to see that, and we've got to understand that and move the ball accordingly to find them spaces. So yeah, we've worked on that, and we're tirelessly working on different kind of attributes to try and make us into a more goal-scoring team. It's been a challenge, but you've got to give the opposition some credit at times.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly a difficult, not always easy to break teams down. How do you assess the run up to Christmas then, Scott? And do you feel like it's important for everyone to sort of stay as calm and as balanced and keep that sense of perspective even after a couple of defeats? Because I think there would probably be a previous era where 2 defeats wouldn't be regarded as poor form. I can probably say this; you might not be able to, but I think. But I think possibly at the moment, the way modern football is, back-to-back defeats can make a lot of people panic. So is it almost a case of sort of separating, getting the players to sort of stay focused and stay calm and see that wider perspective?
Yeah, definitely. I think we looked at the last 2 games, which we've come away with nothing. I think we'd be more concerned if we'd not played very well in them games. We'd be more concerned if the possession stats were down and we'd not passed the ball like we know we can. We'd be more concerned if we'd not had the amount of final third actions that we've had, the chances created, albeit, people talk to me about shots on target. Well, in actual fact, the Crew game especially, our biggest chances were 2 chances that didn't hit the target. They were our biggest chances. Jeff got hit the crossbar with a header, and Ellis Iandolo had a left foot blazer over the bar, which was almost an open goal to a degree. Not an open goal, but he should have scored. So they were our biggest chances, but they're not shots on target. So, people say, oh, you only got 3-4 shots on target in that game. Yeah, well, in actual fact, we had probably 9-10 chances on goal within 1 half. that were bigger chances than the ones that were on target, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we're, like I say, we're working extremely hard to try and create as many of these chances as we can create, and hopefully we'll see a turning point within that. And I do believe that, as frustrating as it is, I also believe there's a lot of positives to take from both of the games that we've lost. But no, we're just gonna, to answer your question, we're just going to concentrate on the next game. Forget the run to Christmas. The only thing we're looking at is Wimbledon on Saturday, and that's the only thing we can concentrate on, and look to put the two losses that we've had to bed, and hopefully get a win on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just before I let you go, Scott, I'd like to ask you about the XG sort of conversation, because I think it's one of those things where I think because it's relatively new to English football, in contrast with shots on target, there's possibly maybe, if I'm stereotyping a little bit, it's possibly older generations that wouldn't hesitate at all to analyse a team's performance based on how many shots on target their team had, but then would feel uncomfortable a little bit about assessing it based on the XG, because it's quite a new thing that people are still maybe getting used to a little bit. But actually, I think XG is probably a better indicator of overall team performance, because it shows that there's been a process to get into a particular goal scoring position, whereas with shots on target, there could have been a belter from 40 yards, or there could have been a tap in that was saved by the goalkeeper, and it doesn't really tell you much about team performance, in contrast with XG.
No, exactly right. It's something that I've kind of studied more so certainly this season than past, is the XG. Our XG is actually not too bad considering the lack of goals. Our XG is quite high. So we need to convert our XG into goals. That's a given. But one thing that is kind of encouraging is that our XG is higher than our XG against. So that's encouraging. The fact that we're putting ourselves in positions where we can score a goal, but we're also, our defence is reasonably tight as well with that.
Yeah, of course. Will you be looking, do you think, into the January window to bring in one or two players who can maybe tighten things up or iron out one or two loose ends, or do you feel like after bringing in 21 players in the summer that it'll be a case of going with what you've got in January, broadly speaking?
I think we're kind of in a position where we'll start having meetings soon about what we think we're going to do. In terms of whether we do add to the group or whether we skinny it down slightly. We're not. I don't think it's blaringly obvious that we need this or we need that. I don't think there's much work needs doing. But we'll certainly be having these discussions and meetings within the club soon.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the latest also with Russian Hepburn Murphy? Because he's someone I'm really excited to see. He could be almost a bit like a new signing himself, couldn't he, when he returns?
Yeah, no, we played a behind closed doors game on Tuesday against Newport, and we did it really for 5 or 6 players really that needed game time. A couple of coming back from injury, and Rushan, he got 20 minutes at the end of that game, which was really encouraging. So he'll be in contention now for the squad at the weekend. So down to me to pick him. Really, he adds something a little bit different to what we've got at the top of the pitch. He's got real pace, real power, really direct in the way he wants to play. So he'll add something different to that. So really pleased to get him back. He's got through the game on Tuesday and trained again today. So we'll have to make a decision on that probably tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, all best to him with his recovery. One more question from me. I know you're a busy
No
man, so I
problem.
don't want to take up too much of your time. What have you made of League Two as a season, as from a more general perspective? Because what I think in terms of the playoff scramble is that there's a lot of teams down to 14th, 15th, 16th that could still make a run for the playoffs, and I think a lot of teams are taking a lot of points off one another, which makes it really exciting from a neutral perspective.
Well, one thing I know is that there's no easy games.
Mm.
You know that's it. That's it. You know, there's no easy games. People, you know, kind of look at us playing against Crew and think that we should have won that game, and oh, you should beat them. It's not as easy as that. You know, it really isn't. Everybody can beat everybody, and they have done. You know, you've seen results in the past where Leighton Orient's been flying, and all of a sudden they've got beat. You know, and anyone can beat anyone. We've just got to kind of, you know, work as hard as we can every day, prepare the team accordingly, attack every game as if we want to try and win it, and see where it takes us. You know, we've got a really good group of players who are desperate to do well here, and I certainly am as a manager. And you know, we're working hard every single day, and there's a lot of effort goes in from everybody here at Swindon Town. And let's see where it takes us. You know, we certainly will be trying anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure you will, and all the best with the promotion push, Scott. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks,
I really
Gabriel. Good to
appreciate it.
speak.
Cheers. This has been EFL Debate. I'll see you again next time.
Thank you.